My grandparents left me $31.5 million. My parents claimed it belonged to the family. But before I share my story, please take a minute of your precious time to support our channel. Your support and love keeps us going. I keep my grandmother's hand, loomed scarf wrapped around my fingers, the yarn soft as breath, as if texture alone could call her back. The funeral home smells like canned lilies and polish. I've tucked myself into a corner chair, watching my family act out grief like it's a pageant. Mom, Monique, dabs at her eyes with a crisp, initialed handkerchief, letting loose showy sobs that bounce off the dark wood walls. Every few minutes, she vanishes to the restroom and returns with fresh mascara and her phone clutched like a prop. The soft click of her camera records a doe-eyed pose beside the lacquered casket for her followers. "This lighting is unforgiving," she mutters, tilting the screen. Near the doorway, Dad, Leonard, argues with the funeral director, voice climbing. "These invoices are out of pocket," he snaps, flicking at his phone. My alerts don't pause just because we're dealing with a situation. To Dad, death is a scheduling conflict with his portfolio. Across from me, my brother Darius hunches over his screen, thumbs skimming endlessly, the glow of a trading app shining through his lenses. He hasn't looked up in 20 minutes, not even when distant cousins press our hands and murmur their condolences. I close my eyes and go where memory is kinder. Saturdays in Grandma and Grandpa's kitchen, warm air braided with cinnamon and orange peel, afternoons in the yard with Grandpa Rufus showing me how to change the oil in his oldest delivery truck. "Amara girl," he'd say, steady hands guiding mine. Knowing how to keep a thing running beats buying a shiny new one. A real tear slides down my cheek. Later, we crowd into the office of the family attorney. Asha Benton's space is all paneling, leather spines, and the faint ghost of pipe tobacco from the tenant before her. Mom claims the center chair like she's posing for a portrait. Dad plants his hands on the chair back, assuming the posture of command. Darius finally pockets his phone, eyes sharp with calculation. "I was thinking we could move the Bay House quickly," Mom says, admiring her nails. "The view alone should pull a premium. The boat will go fast too," Dad adds, nodding. "And those antiques." "Let's not jump," Darius cuts in, suddenly attentive. "I've got feelers out for Grandpa's fleet. Horizon Haulage could pivot that capital into something real." Asha clears her throat, stilling the room. She meets my gaze for a beat, something unreadable there, then draws a thick folder into the light. "As executor of Rufus and Delilah Carter's estate," she says evenly, "I'm obligated to read their instructions exactly as written." We lean forward. Legal phrasing washes by until Asha reaches the line where the current changes. She inhales, then continues. "We bequeath the entirety of our estate, valued at approximately $27.4 million, to our granddaughter, Amara Elise Jenkins." Silence swells, slick and heavy. "The entire estate," Dad repeats, voice gone thin. "There's a mistake," Mom says, smile collapsing. Darius bolts upright. "What did you pull?" he demands at me, heat in his stare. "How'd you twist them?" The accusation lands harder than a slap. "I didn't," I say, my voice catching. "I had no idea." Asha lifts a hand for quiet and opens a laptop. "Rufus and Delilah expected this reaction," she says. "They prepared something." She turns the screen to face us. There they are, side by side on the back porch glider. Tired, resolute. Grandpa's voice is gravel and kindness. "If you're watching this, then our decision surprised some of you." Grandma's follows, soft iron. "Leonard, Monique, Darius, we've heard how you speak about us when you think we can't hear. We've watched you plan our money while we were still breathing." Memories break open like storm clouds, dropping my bag inside their modest-looking bungalow that somehow hid a fortune. Teenage me handing Grandpa tools under a chassis while Mom and Dad schmoozed at fundraisers. Grandma teaching me to garden, to bake, to live with purpose instead of pretense. "Amara," Grandma says, eyes glistening, "is the only one who loved us for who we are, not for what we owned." The video ends. Asha shuts the laptop. The room feels 5 degrees colder. In the parking lot, Dad corners me beside my old sedan, breath hot. "You'll hand control to me tomorrow," he says, voice low. "You can keep 9%. "Baby," Mom coos, sliding in at his shoulder, concern as polished as her nails. This scale of money needs experience. It's too much for you. Darius looms behind them. Remember what family loyalty means, he says. Remember who looks out for you. Keys bite my palm. I need time to think. I manage, the tremor in my voice refusing to hide. Dad's face hardens. Remember who owns your building, Amara. One call. No apartment. They walk away in a neat formation of entitlement. I stand still. 37 digits of money and 2 lifetimes of trust pressing on me like weight. That night I pace my studio, panic clawing at my ribs. My whole life fits in this single room. My school counseling paycheck barely covers rent. Savings. A rumor. Plans. Fragile. A thunder knock rattles the door. Management inspection. A voice barks. My phone rings. Asha's name lights the screen. They're planning to lock you out, she says urgent. Illegal, but they might try. You need to go. Now. Tears blur my vision. I rake essentials into a backpack with shaking hands I can't seem to steady. Strange to inherit a fortune and feel more breakable than ever. I loop Grandma's scarf around my neck. In the quiet fabric I almost hear her. Stand up, Amara girl. Some things are worth the fight. Rain needles the windshield the next afternoon as I pull up to my grandparents' Bayside house, a cedar and stone craftsman tucked modestly among gleaming newcomers. I sit a moment, watching water race the glass, heart thundering. Yesterday I was fleeing with a backpack. Today I'm unlocking a door to a house worth millions that somehow has my name on it. The door opens before I knock. Langston Reed, who has kept this place running for 15 years and long ago crossed the line from staff to family, stands solemnly in the entry. Miss Amara, he says, voice catching. Welcome home. Inside smells like lemon oil and cinnamon, the old combination of clean and comfort. Your grandmother asked me to give you this. Langston offers a small brass key. In case things went this way. He leads me to Grandpa's study, anchored by a heavy oak desk. The key turns a bottom lock. Inside waits a leather journal, ribbon faded, edges burnished by time. She said you'd understand when the time came, Langston murmurs, squeezing my shoulder before leaving me in the hush. I curl into Grandpa's reading chair by the hearth and open the book. The first entry reaches back a decade. Leonard came by asking for another loan. Promised a triple return in months. When Rufus hesitated, he brought up how costly Darius's tuition is getting. We wrote the check. Rufus says we won't see it again. My stomach tightens. Farther in, Leonard hasn't mentioned repayment. When I asked, he acted like I'd forgotten he'd already squared it. Rufus says to let it go. It's only money. I worry it's a pattern, not a moment. Another page. Monique brought designers to freshen the house. Photos, measurements. Later I caught her photographing my mother's silver. She jumped and said it was for party inspiration. The door eases open. Viola Grant, housekeeper, historian, and guardian angel of this home for over 20 years, enters with a tray of tea. Her eyes are rimmed red. You're reading Miss Delilah's journals, she says, not asking. You knew. I gestured to the open book. I kept records of my own, Viola replies, setting down the tray. Miss Delilah asked me to. She disappears and returns with a banker's box. Loan agreements your father never honored. Pitch decks from Darius, all defaulted. And these, she lays a thick folder on top. Copies of deed transfers your mother tried to slide in front of Miss Delilah months before she passed. Called them updates from the advisor. We spread the papers across the desk. Thousands upon thousands bled into Dad's failing ventures. Darius's repeated requests for seed money that never sprouted. Property maneuvers that would have quietly shifted ownership while Grandma was still alive. They were draining them, I whisper. For years, Viola says softly. Mr. Rufus kept hoping. Miss Delilah kept her eyes open. The bell chimes out front. Viola checks her watch. That'll be Mr. Miles and Ms. Okoye. Terrence Miles arrives first, leather portfolio under his arm. He's guided my grandparents' finances for 2 decades and might be the only one who knew the true reach of their wealth. Amara, he says, clasping my hand. I brought the full map. You need to know what you're shielding. Patrice Okoye follows, silver-streaked hair pulled back, posture unshakable, Grandpa's business partner at Horizon College for 30 years. She carries thick binders. Drivers are reporting strangers poking around routes and client contracts. she says without preamble. Somebody's digging. Asha arrives last, legal pads and orders neatly bundled. I've drafted emergency protections. We need to move. We gather at the dining table, an improvised circle of guardians I didn't know I would one day need. Piece by piece, they show me the company my grandparents built and the ways my parents and brother have been grinding at its foundations. My phone buzzes. I put Dad on speaker. You don't know what you're up against, he says, smooth veneer hiding a fraying edge. We can still make this good for everybody, or it gets ugly. Your choice. Before anyone can answer, the bell rings again. A courier hands over a manila envelope with no return address. Inside, photos of me as a kid, faces crudely crossed out in red. Asha slides the contents into an evidence bag. They're escalating, she says. We file the orders now. Viola clears her throat. Miss Delilah set the garden cottage in Port Camellia into a separate trust. Not tied to the main estate. If you need a safe place. I step into Grandma's rainwash garden and inhale the cool air. I never wanted their money, I say to the earth, which does not answer. I just wanted them. Behind me, voices weave a plan. And it strikes me, Rufus and Delilah didn't just leave me assets. They left me truth, and people who will help me stand it up. 3 mornings later, coffee forgotten at my elbow, I stare at a headline that feels like a dare. Family questions dubious inheritance. Anonymous sources claim Delilah's mind was frayed in her last months. My phone lights with Asha's text. Leonard filed for emergency relief, claims mental incompetence. Call me. Before I tap back, a notification explodes onto my screen. Mom on the local morning show, producing tears while voicing her concerns about elder exploitation. The caption reads, Heartbroken daughter seeks justice. The house seems to draw inward. I breathe the way I teach my students when panic prowls. Langston knocks and hands me his tablet. Darius has spun up an online campaign overnight, Justice for the Carter Legacy. Already hundreds of followers weighing in with borrowed outrage. Horizon Hollage calls next. 3 clients got anonymous letters questioning the company's stability. They're attacking from every angle. I say, my voice unfamiliar. Mr. Rufus planned for this, Langston answers. Maybe it's time you saw his business journals. In the study, the 1989 ledger opens to a recession year when Horizon nearly buckled. The bank said no. Delilah offered to sell the house. I can't. When people predict your failure, that's when your backbone shows. Tomorrow I'll ask the drivers to take a temporary arrangement. We'll get through. I trace the pressed grooves his pen left. Tears smear the ink in my vision. There's more, Langston says, lifting a small USB drive from Grandma's desk. Miss Delilah installed cameras last year. She didn't tell them. On Grandpa's computer, we scrubbed to the day of the funeral, Dad and Darius moving room to room, scanning values on their phones, tucking small items into coats. Mom photographing silver and lamps between practice sobs. They were stealing, I say, not a question. Miss Delilah kept receipts for everything, Langston replies. The security system chirps. Langston checks his phone. They're at the gates. All of them. I go to the front window. 3 cars idle at the iron fence. Dad's sedan, Mom's glossy SUV, Darius's electric coupe. Call Asha, Langston asks. I square my shoulders. Rufus's voice moves through me like current. Backbone. No. I'll handle this. I press the intercom. I'll meet you on the front steps. The gates swing wide. Summer sun burns bright as I stand alone at the top of the limestone stairs, letting the neighborhood witness whatever comes next. Dad comes first, briefcase in hand, expression arranged but eyes jittering with math. Mom follows in a tasteful black dress, phone at the ready. Darius hangs half a step back, jaw tight. This has gone far enough, Dad announces, projecting like a boardroom. We'll start with great-grandmother's silver service and the Tiffany lamps. Those are specifically listed in the will as mine, I say. My voice doesn't shake. Well, we are contesting, Mom says, mask slipping. Sweetheart, you're out of your depth. Let us steady the ship while the courts. Darius tries to slide past me up the steps. I'll just grab my things from my old. He freezes as new red indicators wink to life along the eaves and a Loham activates. Trespass prevention, I explain calmly. Multiple live cameras to a secure server. Mom gasps theatrically and sinks onto the pristine lawn. My own daughter treats us like criminals. Gravel crunches. Langston appears from the side path with a leather binder. Miss Amara, the complete household inventory with provenance as requested. Viola arrives next, spine straight. I witnessed items being removed after the service, she announces, loud and clear. I've sworn to it. A gray sedan glides up behind my family's cars. Patrice steps out, followed by 5 Horizon drivers in company polos. We came to stand with her, Patrice says. Rufus and Delilah ran on integrity. We honor their choice. Asha's coupe pulls in last. She closes her door, portfolio under her arm. Perfect timing, she says mildly. I was coming to update Amara on the restraining orders. Since you're all present, I can serve you directly. Dad's color rises. Mom lifts her head just enough to track the growing audience. Along the street, neighbors drift into view, folks who knew my grandparents' names and birthdays and favorite pies, phones angled discreetly. I step forward until sunlight warms my face. This ends today, I say, letting the hush carry my words. Everything spoken here is recorded. Every action filmed. You've shown us who you are. Now everyone else can see it too. A newsman slows at the curb, logo bright. Who called the media? Dad snarls, composure unraveling. We did, calls Mrs. Henderson from across the way, waving. Neighborhood watch. We protect our own. For the first time since the funeral, something like fear flickers in my father's eyes. He glances at the cameras, at Asha's paperwork, at the circle forming around me. This isn't over, he mutters, already retreating. Mom rises from her miraculous faint and hurries after him. Darius lingers a heartbeat, meets my eyes, then drops his gaze and follows. That night, in the quiet of the primary bedroom my grandparents shared, I sit on the edge of their neatly made bed. Grandma's knitting basket waits beside her chair, needles mid-row. Grandpa's glasses rest by a half-read mystery novel. The grief I've been keeping at bay finally crashes through. I clutch one of Grandma's needles and whisper into the dim, I don't know if I can be what you believed I could be. Dawn finds me still there, the lace curtains glowing gold. What settles in my chest isn't peace, not exactly. It's resolve. By mid-morning, the house hums with purpose again. Asha with legal folders, Terence with financial maps, Patrice with operations reports. I take Grandpa's place at the study table and stop feeling like an imposter. We aren't just reacting, I tell them, hearing Rufus in the room. We're building. Viola slips in carrying a dusty box. Found this in the attic, she says. The label, in Grandma's tidy hand, reads, In case of Leonard. Inside, decades of letters, recordings, statements, each dated, catalogued airtight. At the bottom lies a small leather book. I lift it with careful hands. Is it? I ask. Viola nods. You'd know it. It's Rufus Carter's original 1964 ledger, the founding document of Horizon College, containing the covenant he wrote at the beginning, the one that knots his legacy to the people who kept the wheels turning. For the first time since the will, I feel my own backbone align with his. By sunrise the next day, the house has a rhythm, papers shuffling, printers humming, voices low and focused. Asha lays out a timeline of filings like a general mapping a campaign. Temporary orders first, she said. The morning of the mediation dawns cool and sharp, like the air itself is bracing for impact. I'm in the study early, pacing grooves into the carpet, Grandma's scarf looped once at my neck. On the polished oak table, Asha has already set neat stacks of folders, each one labeled with exhibits. Terence scrolls through financial models on his tablet, while Patrice leans against the fireplace, arms folded, eyes steady. Viola lights a stick of sandalwood incense, saying softly, for peace, no matter how loud they get. At 10 sharp, car doors slam outside. Langston answers the knock, his expression stone, and ushers them in. Dad comes first, shoulders squared, briefcase swinging like a weapon. Mom follows, her smile brittle as a porcelain mask. Darius trails them, eyes darting everywhere but mine. But they weren't expecting the others. Judge Merriweather sits calmly at the head of the table, pen poised above a leather notebook. Beside the window stands Daniel Wright, retired police chief, my grandfather's fishing buddy, arms crossed. When Dad sees them, he stops short. What is this? His voice cuts. We agreed to a family conversation, not a tribunal. We agreed to mediation. I correct, my voice even. These are the mediators I chose. Neutralize. Trusted hands. For a long moment, Dad's face flames crimson, but he finally sinks into the chair across from me. Mom tries to glide to my side, arms out like she's reaching for a hug. Baby, let's talk privately first, Family matters should stay in the family. Family matters should involve actual family behavior, I answer, keeping my voice calm. Sit, please. Reluctantly, they do. Darius slouches into his chair, collar tugged as if it's strangling him. Asha clears her throat, flipping open the first folder. Exhibit A. She taps her laptop, and the flat screen hums to life. Footage fills the room. The night of the funeral, Dad and Darius slipping framed paintings into the trunk of Dad's sedan. Mom carefully tucking candlesticks into her purse between stage sobs. Safeguarding heirlooms, Dad mutters, but his voice cracks around the edges. Exhibit B. Asha continues. Bank statements bloom across the screen, red numbers climbing like fire. Unpaid loans to Leonard's failed ventures, totaling $4.2 million. Mom's painted lips part, but no sound comes. Darius stares down at his hands. Exhibit C. Asha doesn't pause. Property transfer documents bearing Mom's signature, dated while Grandma was hospitalized. Attempted deed reallocation, she explains. Nullified by Delilah's refusal to sign, but indicative of intent. Every revelation strips another layer of polish from my parents. Dad's knuckles whiten around the armrest. Mom's mascara streaks down her cheeks. Darius folds into himself, smaller with every passing minute. Finally, Asha lays down Grandma's journal, the worn leather trembling slightly in her hand. And Exhibit D. In Delilah Carter's own words. She reads aloud, Leonard demanded another $100,000 today. When I reminded him of the past loans, he implied we wouldn't want Darius to learn certain things. Rufus, and I know it's a threat. We've decided Amara is our only hope to preserve what we've built. The silence afterward is heavier than shouting. Dad slams his fist on the table, so hard the ink bottle rattles. You manipulated them, he roars, eyes bloodshot. You turned them against us. No, I say, my voice calmer than I expect. Your actions turned them against you. They only wrote the truth down. I slide a final folder across the table. This is my offer. A modest trust fund for each of you, conditional upon returning everything you took from this house and ending all attempts to interfere with Horizon College or the Carter Foundation. Dad laughs harshly. Or what? Or I filed charges for theft, elder abuse, and fraud, I answer. With documentation in triplicate, witnessed by a sitting judge and a former police chief. His laughter curdles into silence. Mom drops her head into her hands, sobbing, not staged this time, but jagged. Darius avoids my gaze, staring holes into the grain of the table. Judge Merriweather makes a note, then looks up. You may sign now or contest in court, but understand, the record presented here is sufficient for both criminal and civil action. The room ticks with the sound of the grandfather clock in the hall. 10 minutes pass before Dad finally snatches the pen. The scratching of his signature across the pages is the sound of a door closing. Mom signs next, hand trembling. Darius hesitates longest, then finally scrawls his name with a grimace. As they stand to leave, Mom reaches toward me with tear-stained fingers. I step back. Boundaries, I say quietly. They're real now. Dad glares at me one last time. This isn't the end, he mutters, though his eyes say he knows it is. When the door shuts behind them, my chest collapses like I'd been holding my breath for months. Judge Merriweather caps her pen and nods. Daniel gives a rare smile. Rufus would be proud, he says simply. Standing your ground isn't about being the loudest voice. It's about knowing when enough is enough. I touch the scarf at my neck, my grandmother's stitches still warm against my skin. I never wanted their money, I whisper. No, Asha replies, steady as ever. That's exactly why they trusted you with it. Outside, their engines roar, then fade into distance. For the first time in weeks, the house feels like mine. Not just the walls, the air, the ground, the legacy. 6 months after the mediation, I still arrive at the high school by 7:30. My counseling office, with its battered love seat and bulletin board of college brochures, is the title I cherish most. The brass nameplate reads Amara Jenkins, student counselor, even though other documents call me executor, beneficiary heir. A clipping from the Bayhaven Tribune sits on my desk. Horizon Haulage reports record profits under employee ownership model. Rufus's trucks still rumble through town, but now 70 drivers own shares in their future. Miss Jenkins, my assistant peeks in. The foundation recipients are here. Down the hall, 5 nervous students sit clutching folders. I explain the Delilah and Rufus Carter Foundation Scholarship Program. Full tuition, stipends, and apprenticeships. Their eyes widen. My grandparents believed in building things that last. I tell them, now you're part of that. Later that week, I drive the familiar road to the Bay House. It feels lighter now, as if the air itself approves of the truth being out. Inside, the dining table that once heard family greed now hosts a celebration. Viola sets out Delilah's china. Langston arranges Rufus's chessboard. Patrice pours sparkling cider. Terrence adjusts his glasses as Asha reads aloud the Foundation's first major project approval, a 3D printing lab for the community college's trade program. You could barely lift your head at our first meeting here, Patrice teases. Now look at you leading. Same house, same people. I smile, but a different Amara. That night, I journal in long loops. Early pages brim with panic, later ones with plans. Grief exercises beside Delilah's recipes, Rufus's chess notes beside pressed flowers from the cottage garden. Even Professor the cat curls into Grandma's chair now, purring instead of hissing. But the outside world keeps pressing. Gregory's business collapses. Serena applies to join the foundation board as if nothing happened. Darius pitches yet another startup, swearing this one is different. My responses are polite refusals. Boundaries, clear and firm. On my 30th birthday, the cottage fills with people who chose me. Foundation members, Horizon drivers, neighbors who once watched from behind fences. No glittering gifts, only thoughtful tokens. A vintage edition of my favorite book, a scarf hand-knitted in Delilah's style, seeds from Viola's garden. Patrice raises her glass. To choosing family by their actions, not their blood. Asha updates us on the permanent protections, now etched in law. Terrence outlines Horizon's growth plan. Langston leans back, smiling like someone finally resting after years of vigilance. The following Tuesday, a sophomore sits across from me in my office, twisting her hands. They say I owe them, she whispers. That everything they've done was for me. That I should pay them back. Her words hit me like a mirror. I hand her a packet I've prepared. Therapy options, legal resources, boundary setting guides. Your worth isn't measured by what they claim you owe. I tell her the words I needed 6 months ago. At sunset, I walk the garden path. A new grove rises from the soil, 1 tree for each scholarship recipient. A bench waits nearby with a bronze plaque, Legacy Lives Through Love, Delilah and Rufus Carter. That night, I open Grandma's final journal and see blank pages waiting. I take up my pen and begin my own entries. The glow of the house warms behind me. For the first time, peace feels less like something fragile and more like something rooted. The inheritance that matters most isn't written in bank ledgers. It's here, in the soil, in the people, in the choice to build instead of destroy. By autumn, the dust of court battles and media noise has settled into something quieter. Horizon Haulage runs steady. The foundation hums with projects. And for the first time since that day in the attorney's office, I feel like I'm steering instead of bracing. At the cottage, the air smells of wood smoke and the salt of the bay. The team meets weekly around the oak dining table. Patrice reports on new shipping contracts. Terrence presents the numbers, solid, sustainable. Asha updates us on restraining orders that have gone from temporary to permanent. Viola takes notes in her looping handwriting, adding reminders about whose turn it is to bring dessert. The attacks still come in ripples. Gregory tries to resurrect a business, then petitions for a loan. Serena sends carefully worded emails, hinting at reconciliation if only the foundation would grant her a board seat. Darius texts pitches, swearing he's changed. Each time, I reply the same way, polite, firm refusal. Boundaries honored. One Saturday, I sit on the porch swing with Rufus's old ledger in my lap. The original pages, brittle but clear, still carry his steady script. Never build wealth without building people. Otherwise, the walls fall hollow. I trace the letters with my fingertip. Their voices feel closer in these words than in any photo. That evening, we hold the first scholarship banquet. 5 students step nervously onto the stage, acceptance letters trembling in their hands. I watch their families, some weeping, some grinning wide, applaud futures that once seemed out of reach. This, I say at the podium, is the true inheritance. Not what you keep, but what you pass forward. The applause is real, not polite. It rolls over me like light. Months later, in my counseling office, a junior sits across from me, fighting tears. They told me if I don't follow the plan they laid out, I'll regret it forever, she says. That I owe them everything. I lean forward. You don't owe them your peace, or your future. You get to choose. Her eyes widen, as if no one has ever said it aloud. After she leaves, I glance at the Foundation's newest brochure on my desk. The motto printed across the top reads, "Stand your ground. Build what lasts." Grandma's words, now a guiding star. That night I walked to the grove. 10 trees stand where there were 5, each planted for a student now in training programs, apprenticeships, classrooms. A plaque gleams in the dusk. Legacy lives through love. I sit on the bench, journal open on my lap, and write my own pages beside Delilah's unfinished ones. When the wind shifts, I swear I can almost hear her voice again. Amara girl, keep building. Keep choosing. I look back at the house, our house, lamplit alive. And I know at last, the wealth my grandparents entrusted me with wasn't money at all. It was courage. It was truth. It was the reminder that love, once planted, can outlive us all. Amara's journey reminds us that true inheritance is not measured in dollars or deeds, but in the courage to stand firm, the wisdom to draw boundaries, and the choice to build a legacy rooted in love. Betrayal and greed may echo loudly, but integrity endures longer. Through pain, she found purpose. Through loss, she uncovered strength. And through her grandparents' faith, she discovered the backbone to become her own. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs reminding that their worth isn't defined by what others demand, but by what they choose to build. Subscribe for more powerful stories of resilience, and join us in celebrating voices that prove love and integrity will always outlast greed.